What's going on, guys? It's Rapid Reform here. In today's video, I want to talk about a topic that I strongly believe needs to be more emphasized in the self-development industry. Ever since I began my own self-development journey, I have learned a ton of things about social skills, confidence, meditating, cold showers, and so on. But one topic that I do not see emphasized enough is how our everyday actions affect the natural environment that we come from, live in, and nowadays take for granted. In this video, I will cover a sensitive topic that has gotten a lot of attention over the years but still has a ton of room for growth. So make sure you stay till the very end of this video because it can potentially change your life and even the world. Chances are at some point in your life you have heard about climate change. And whether you agree with it or not, the scientifically proven fact is that climate change is occurring in almost every corner of our planet because of human activities. Maybe you've heard things like how the temperatures are increasing every year, about how glaciers and icebergs are melting at record rates, how there are more destructive hurricanes every year, among many other stories. Here's the thing. Most people will talk about all of these bad things that are going on, but what we must also realize is that at the end of the day, these bad things will never stop unless we do something about it. And that goes for anything in life. It doesn't matter what happens to you, but instead what you do about it. With that said, there have been multiple actions taken to recycle more, ride our bikes rather than drive, use more electric cars, plant more trees, and so on. You probably have taken part in at least one of these activities, or perhaps another that I didn't mention. But what if I told you that what you put in your refrigerator at home can either help or hurt the environment as well? That's right, the food that you eat every day can either help to preserve our planet or decimate it. To put things into perspective, let's imagine you go to a fast food restaurant and get a $4 cheeseburger. It looks like an amazing dish, but have you ever thought about how this cheeseburger was made? Let's assume that the burger is made of 2 buns, 1 patty, 1 slice of cheese, some lettuce, and some tomato slices. The burger buns can be made by mixing flour from wheat crops with water, and then heating them. For flavor, people will put things like sugar, yeast, eggs, milk, and other products, but they're not necessary. So with just flour and water, it takes a total of about 10 gallons of water to go from seed to hamburger buns. The lettuce and tomatoes come from planting their respective seeds and then harvesting them, which takes a total of about 20 gallons of water to go from seeds to slices. Now let's talk about the slice of cheese. First, you need about a cup of milk, which requires a cow to give birth to a baby calf and use an average of 58 gallons of water for drinking and feeding per cup. The milk then has to be heated, mixed, and cleaned. And to be made into cheese, the milk is acidified with bacteria and enzymes, which makes a liquid-solid mix. The liquid and solid are separated, and the solid part is shaped into the slice of cheese that you eat. Now let's look at the hamburger patty. You need a cow, and you need to raise it to full size, which takes around 20 months. In that time, you need for the cow to eat about 150 pounds of feed and drink 35 gallons of water every single day. And finally, the cow has to be slaughtered for its meat, which then has to be cleaned and processed before it is sold. And it takes an average of 660 gallons of water to go from the cow to one single patty on your dinner plate. And all of these steps add up to your $4 cheeseburger. But let's put things into perspective. It took about 10 gallons of water to make the buns, 20 gallons for the lettuce and tomatoes, 58 gallons for the slice of cheese, and 660 for the patty. In percentages, the buns used 1.3% of the water, the tomatoes and lettuce used 2.7%, the cheese used 7.7%, and the remaining 88.3% goes to the patty. Notice the difference in resources used by the buns, tomatoes, and lettuce, which are all plant-based, versus the cheese, which is dairy, versus the patty, which is meat. 660 gallons for one patty is the same amount of water that you could use to shower every day for nearly 2 months. And don't forget to consider that the cows have to eat grass or corn to make milk and dairy, and much more before they are eventually slaughtered for their meat. And also consider that the culmination of steps, time, land, and energy needed to make the plant-based sources, the single dairy product, and the single patty fall on a scale of 1 to 3 to 18. This is what nobody is talking about when it comes to saving the environment. Nobody talks about the harmful effects that animal agriculture has not just on resource use, but also greenhouse gas emissions, deforestation, wildlife, the ocean, oil use, world hunger. The list goes on and on. And here are some more facts for you. Animal agriculture is responsible for 51% of all greenhouse gas emissions in the form of carbon dioxide, methane, and nitrous oxide, which is more than all cars, trucks, trains, boats, and planes combined. In other words, eating animal products creates more greenhouse gases than the entire transportation sector. And it also consumes more water and resources than any other human activity, because it takes up 30% of the world's water use, 45% of the Earth's land, 91% of all the deforestation in the Amazon, and it is also the leading cause of ocean dead zones, habitat destruction, and species extinction. Even if we completely stop burning fossil fuels, animal agriculture could still cause global temperatures to go up because of how intensive it is. It causes 1 acre, or about 1 football field, of deforestation in the Amazon every single second, and that would be enough to eliminate the entire rainforest by 2030. And also, nearly 116,000 pounds of animal waste are made every second because of animal agriculture. Over a year, that's enough waste to cover every square foot of the state of Pennsylvania. What about seafood? There are 90 million tons of fish consumed every year, which has caused 75% of all the fisheries in the world to be fully or over depleted. And for every pound of fish that's caught, there are an average of 5 pounds of unwanted marine life caught, which includes whales, dolphins, turtles, and sharks. And on the note of dairy, almost all of our dairy products come from milk, and it takes nearly 1,000 gallons of water to produce just 1 gallon of milk. And finally, because of animal agriculture, almost 1/3 of all the land on Earth has become a desert. And at the end of the day, there just isn't enough land or resources to meet the current and growing demand of meat and dairy. Simply put, the amount of animal products we consume must decline in order for us to sustain our environment and decelerate climate change. That is the main reason why I have decided to be vegan, which means that my diet does not include any meat, dairy, or other animal products. Now, I cannot pressure or force you to be vegan, but I will tell you some of the amazing benefits that come with doing so. First, let's look how a meat eater compares with a vegan on the environmental scale. A vegan diet produces half as much carbon dioxide of a meat-eating diet. It uses 1/11th of the amount of oil needed, 1/13th of the amount of water needed, and just 1/18th of the land. Per day, a vegan will save 1,100 gallons of water, 45 pounds of grains, 30 square feet of forest, 10 pounds of carbon dioxide, and 1 animal's life every single day. And also, you can produce 15 times more protein from plants than from animals, regardless of where you are. How? Well, if we have half an acre of land, you can theoretically produce about 375 pounds of meat, or you can produce 37,000 pounds of vegetables and fruits. Plus, nearly 1.8 tons of CO2 can be removed per year per person with a vegan diet, which is more than the emissions saved that a solar or hybrid car takes away from a gas-powered car. And finally, an average of 10 times less energy is needed to fulfill a vegan diet versus a meat-eating or vegetarian diet. This is because when you eat food, only about 10% of the energy from the food gets taken up. So if you eat meat and dairy, you get 10% of the energy from the animals, and ultimately 1% from the plants, because the animals ate the plants. Or you can get 10% from the plants directly from consuming them. There's a whole lot more benefits, but I think you get the point. And better yet, the benefits of a vegan diet don't just stop with the environment. It's actually better for your health as well. Since we were kids, many of us have grown up in a culture where we are told to eat meat because it is a great source of protein and fats. But here's what you probably didn't learn. Our anatomy is actually not designed for eating meat. Compared to carnivores like lions and tigers, we don't have claws, and we don't have large sharp teeth that can easily tear through flesh. Our hands are designed by nature for picking food off of plants, and our teeth are made for grinding and crushing plant fibers. And that is why it takes a lot less effort for us to chew fruits and veggies than it does to chew meat, whether you notice it or not. And also, carnivores have a much shorter digestive system than humans, since the nutritional value of meat can be easily absorbed. But humans have a much longer digestive system because it takes a lot more time and enzymes to break down and absorb plant fibers, which we are naturally equipped to do whenever we eat plant-based foods. And here's something else. You may have gone to some restaurants that will mention in their menus that eating raw or uncooked meats can cause foodborne illnesses. And that is because our stomach acids are actually very weak compared to carnivores. Our stomachs cannot kill a lot of the dangerous bacteria that meat has, and that's why we have to cook it. And even then, cooked meat is still very high in cholesterol and saturated fat, which is why meat eaters have a 32% higher risk of developing heart disease as opposed to those who don't eat meat. Well, what about dairy? Well, most of us have known that dairy is a good source of calcium and minerals. On the other hand, you also get lactose, and nearly 75% of all people are lactose intolerant. And even if you're not, dairy consumption is known to cause obesity and diabetes in many, and is also responsible for a large number of allergies. And finally, studies have shown that dairy consumption can also lead to a lot of acne and sometimes even to cancer. And at the end of the day, there's no other species on Earth that consumes milk past their first few years on Earth. And that goes for anything that can also be made from milk. And there's also no other species that consumes milk of another animal. With that said, you can give your body a significantly easier time processing food by cutting out meat and dairy from your diet, which ultimately improves your health. The last major benefit that you give with being vegan are animal welfare rights. Let's keep it simple. The only way you can get meat is by raising animals for months or even years at a time and eventually slaughtering them. The only way you can get eggs is by breeding chickens and taking a baby chick's life away. And it doesn't get much better with dairy. In order to get the milk that you drink or is used for other dairy products, the cows and goats need to keep giving birth. So the male animals are extracted of their sperms, and the female are forced into keep giving birth to baby calves. And finally, we consume the milk that these baby calves need to grow into strong and healthy adults. Now, I'm not going to get into too much detail about what happens to the animals. I'm sure you can just imagine it in your head. But I will tell you some numbers about this process that happens every single day. In 1 year in the US, there are about 7 million sheep killed, 29 million ducks killed, 38 million cows killed, 123 million pigs, 227 million turkeys, 3.8 billion fish, yes, that's billion with a B, 7.8 billion chickens, and 43 billion shellfish, all killed. And that's just the US. Imagine what it must be for the whole world. If these animals weren't killed or extracted for their milk, we wouldn't have to breed them, feed them, and devote 45% of all the Earth's land to them. Forests, wildlife, oceans, water, air, and our health would all be sustained. We would be putting back our values into the animals, the environment, and even ourselves. Fun fact, wild cows are meant to control grass growth and health as well as nutrient cycling. Chickens are meant to control pests like grasshoppers and beetles, and just like cows, they also help create a natural fertilizer. Pigs help to maintain biodiversity by making room for new plants and dispersing their seeds. And in our oceans and lakes, fish are vital to transporting nutrients and are a huge part of the food network. Just ask yourself, would I be willing to hurt or kill an animal to put food on my plate? Is good tasting food more important to me than an animal's life? At the end of the day, don't forget that your everyday actions can affect more than just yourself. And those are all the major benefits that come with you switching to a plant-based lifestyle. So let's recap what we talked about in this video. Just about all of us know that climate change is a threat, but only a small fraction of us are aware of the destructive effects of animal agriculture. A $4 cheeseburger alone takes up enough resources with which you could alternatively shower for 2 months, air condition a home for a whole day, among many other options. Animal agriculture is also the leading cause of greenhouse gas emissions, water use, land use, deforestation, the list goes on. And there's not enough land or resources for us to meet the current and growing demand of meat and dairy. So the best thing you can do to reduce your environmental footprint, which almost nobody talks about, is by becoming vegan. By doing so, you'll be able to save tons of carbon dioxide, no pun intended, from being emitted. You also save thousands of gallons of water, thousands of acres of land, hundreds of pounds of crops, hundreds of kilowatts of energy, and billions of animals' lives. Furthermore, a plant-based diet is better for your health as well because it gives your body an easier time to digest food, and it saves you from a lot of health problems like obesity, acne, illness, and even cancer. Finally, a vegan lifestyle helps you put values and ethics back into the animals since they will not be hurt or slaughtered, and they can restore their ecological roles. I will certainly make another video about how exactly you can transition from a meat-eating or a vegetarian diet into a vegan lifestyle. But for now, I want you to do your part and try to incorporate more plant-based foods into your diet. because we may not realize it is too late until it is too late. Did you find inspiration in this video? If you did, it would mean a lot if you left a like down below. Are you already vegan? What are some things you want to learn about veganism? Is there something that holds you back from being vegan? Tell me in the comments, and I will answer as many questions as I can, if not in another video. Remember to subscribe and turn on notifications to rapidly reform your life for the better. Thanks for watching, have a wonderful day, and eat more plants!